Here is the brutal truth from the zero line. We either evolve to faster, smarter systems right now, or we don't survive. There is no plan B.
Removing a muzzle brake with nothing but a log just to clean the barrel? No problem. Pulling the engine? A bit tougher, but doable. The AS-90 is repaired on the knee. There is less electronic flash here and less automation. That's exactly why for a long time it was lost in the shadow of the German howitzer PZH-2000, the technological icon of artillery. But there's a catch. The shells the AS-90 fires sometimes make it more convincing than its German rival. Why do British munitions work differently? What exactly about the AS-90 surprised the Ukrainian crews? And why does it look like this war will be its last? That's exactly what this video is about. To start, let's see some combat work. Because right now, a 155mm AS-90 self-propelled howitzer is taking part in repelling an assault. The barrel recoils. Shells fly toward the spot where 17 Russian stormtroopers just disembarked. These are those same unique shells you'll learn about once this fight is over and the crew returns to their staging area. For now, watch them in action. Let's speed it up a bit. Go ahead, hit that like button, because where else are you going to see the result of textbook work from artillerymen? Even for the commanders watching the mission on a stack of screens, this footage is unique. The last Russian stormtrooper tries to find a place to hide. He doesn't make it in time. Job done. The vehicle returns to an underground bunker. The gates close quickly. Time to catch a breath, have a smoke, and ask the guys about their AS-90. What are their impressions?
Phew, to be honest, my arms are falling off.
Yeah, the AS-90s aren't the newest in Europe. Here, only the shell delivery is mechanized. Everything else is manual labor. But only war determines the strengths and weaknesses of a weapon. So, what does the lack of an autoloader affect besides the loader's health? First and foremost, the rate of fire. Nowadays, to survive, a crew needs to act very fast. But due to the lack of an autoloader, the AS-90s aren't that quick. Let's compare them to the gold standard. While the PZH-2000 is capable of firing up to 5 shells on different trajectories, so they hit the target simultaneously, the maximum rate of fire for the AS-90s is 3 shots in 10 seconds.
To get off 3 quick shots, you need 2 shells standing right here, ready to go, and 1 already loaded.
The subsequent rate of fire, as you can imagine, depends entirely on the physical conditioning of the crew. However, there are advantages to simplicity. For instance, you don't have to change your boots when you step into the fighting compartment, like the PZH-2000 crews do. The absence of an autoloader means less dependence on complex electronic modules and sensors that are afraid of dirt and moisture, and are hard to repair in the middle of a forest using a log or a hammer. Because servicing an autoloader requires more than just wrenches. It takes diagnostic laptops with proprietary software and specific calibration tools. Finally, it's the lack of complex equipment that makes mastering the British howitzer easier. Is that a major plus or not? You decide. But here's what the fighters say.
We're self-taught. My whole crew, they're all self-taught.
Yes, the AS-90s are from the past, though not as ancient as the British tracked APCs, the FV-103 Spartan. That's why the British SPGs show themselves not only as more resistant to field conditions, but also more intuitive for artillerymen who have experience working with Soviet systems. However, that doesn't mean the AS-90s are that old. No, they don't need an aiming circle.
This system isn't jammed by EWs because it's autonomous and works only for this vehicle. It aims itself without additional steps. It aims, and that's it. Then we just take the shot.
Let's break it down. They've implemented lineups here, the laser inertial navigation and pointing system, which is autonomous. That's why the vehicle determines exactly where it is and where its barrel is pointed without any external landmarks. British power is impressive, but what about the accuracy? After all, Ukrainian artillery accounts for about 40% of Russian losses. How are these British SPGs performing?
The AS-90s are quite accurate, so we use them for counter-battery fire as well. At the very least, we hit the required grid square.
Here's how a counter-battery mission goes down. The SPG's commander receives target data via radio or through a digital battle management system. The data can come in while the AS-90 is moving.
Usually we operate on the principle of a roving gun.
The British howitzer is ready to fire in less than 60 seconds from the moment of a full stop. For a few seconds, the onboard computer calculates the necessary elevation angles and azimuth, taking into account barrel wear, shell type, and weather conditions. The gunner sees the commands on the screen. In automatic mode, electric drives traverse and elevate the barrel to the specified coordinates. Boom!
We saturate them. They can't even pull up their own artillery.
But it's time to take a look at these magical British shells, thanks to which the AS-90s make their contribution to the casualty statistics.
Come on, let me show you these shells. They sit separately from the tubes with the powder bags.
So the L15A1/A2s, the AS-90s were actually designed specifically around this shell. What's so special about them? Back in the day, the L15 shell was developed to be the most powerful NATO standard. The thing is, it contains about 11.3 kilograms of explosives. That's a lot. But to help you understand the gulf between the Brit and other popular shells, take a look at these numbers. For comparison, the standard German DM-121 fired by the PZH-2000 or the American M107 shell and others have between 6.5 and 9 kilograms of explosives. And as you can probably guess, the more explosives, the more powerful the shockwave.
Good work, boys. Come on into the shelter.
However, stuffing more explosives into a shell is a difficult task. The British pulled off one strange trick with the L15 munition that the Germans didn't think of. What are we talking about? Before we continue uncovering these little-known facts, please subscribe to our channel. It's your subscription that inspires us to keep researching the effectiveness of modern and not so modern weapons in real combat rather than just on a proving ground. Thank you. So, moving on. The walls of the L15 are made of high-quality steel. Yes, this steel is more expensive, but it's stronger. That's why the Brits were able to make the shell walls thinner without losing structural integrity. But the main goal of this trick is to fit in more explosives without increasing the size or the total weight of the shell.
The scale of destruction from these shells and this gun is well known to the enemy.
The result? Because of the more powerful explosion, the shrapnel velocity is higher, which increases the lethal kill zone. You've got to admit, that's a smart move. But can the AS-90s use shells from other manufacturers? This is a crucial question, because specific shells often require specific logistics. Besides, the Ukrainian army sometimes faces shortages of munitions from one manufacturer or another.
All the shells they brought yesterday, we fired off today.
Therefore, it's better to have a universal gun that's in action than a specialized one sitting idle in an underground parking lot. The AS-90s don't have downtime. They are omnivorous workhorses. Their barrels and chambers are designed for munitions from almost all Western manufacturers within the 155mm NATO standard. The British howitzer will easily swallow a German DM-121 and lob it exactly on target. But there is a catch. A German shell doesn't turn the British howitzer into a PZH-2000. In other words, the AS-90's firing range with a German shell will remain as it was, up to 30 kilometers. It seems people expect more from a Western gun. For comparison, the PZH-2000 is capable of hurling these shells over 40 kilometers. Why can't the AS-90s do that? As sad as it is, friend, size matters. No matter what the optimists say. The fact is, most AS-90s have a barrel length of 6 meters, which provides less range compared to the German PZH-2000, which has an 8-meter barrel. The longer the barrel, the greater the range, and vice versa. That's just how it works. As it turned out, the German SPGs, which crews nicknamed the Fickle Lady, were developed as third millennium artillery, where the main focus is on maximum high-tech, precision, and maximum range. You can easily find a video about the nuances of operating the German SPGs on our channel. But the AS-90s represent a completely different philosophy. They are simple and reliable, provided you perform timely maintenance.
The more often you grease it, the better.
And most importantly, you need spare parts to keep it in working order. But that's exactly where the main problems for the AS-90s in Ukraine begin. And it's very, very serious.
Собрать, разобрать.
Assembling, disassembling, or tuning it? No problem. Some parts you can even turn on a lathe, but when it comes to the supply of critical components, that's a problem. Without them, keeping the SPGs in working order is impossible.
The situation is tough, and it might get worse because the AS-90s are no longer in production, and Britain has handed over all its available SPGs to Ukraine. 99 units. But imagine this. A third of those units were transferred in non-working condition. Why? They were meant to be spare parts donors to keep the main group combat ready. For a while, it worked. But everything has its limit. Over the years of the war, up to 12 AS-90s have been destroyed or damaged, and the rest have been operating under extreme conditions.
I calculated that in a year, my battery fired 10,000 rounds. The Brits say that's a huge amount. Basically, we're squeezing everything out of them.
We suspect those vehicles, as well as the donors, have been stripped down to the last bolt. So how are the Ukrainians managing this situation? It's known that Britain continues to supply critical high-wear components. Specifically, aid packages include new L31A1 barrels and other scarce spare parts. It's likely that some of the parts could be provided by Poland. The thing is, the turret of the Polish AHS Crab SPGs is a licensed copy of the AS-90's turret, so some modules might be interchangeable. Like what? First, the loading mechanisms, since the turret architecture is identical. Second, the breech and the breech block, as they're made to NATO standards. Third, the laying drives and gun elevation mechanisms. Theoretically, this allows using the Polish repair base for the British vehicles. But only partially. You're about to see why. So the engine.
Right now, we're replacing the power plant because it lost its pull.
As for the Cummins VTA903T engines, these units are still being manufactured, though exclusively for military needs. Because besides the AS-90s, Cummins engines are used by the Bradleys and the M27OAs fighting in Ukraine. So there are no issues with spare parts, replacement, or repair for these engines. But with everything else,
our vehicles are from the 90s, 91 and 93 production years. They are very old. Every 10 days, something needs repair.
For example, regarding spare parts for the chassis, do you think the AS-90s were built on the base of the Challenger 2 tank? No, the Brits outsmarted themselves here, because the chassis of the AS-90 self-propelled artillery unit is an original design. For some reason, this chassis didn't become the base for a whole family of armored vehicles, as often happens with other platforms. Even the modern Polish Crab has a different base. It's a hybrid of the AS-90's turret and a South Korean chassis from the K9 Thunder SPGs. You can watch more about this super interesting Polish SPG in a separate video. That's why the war in Ukraine is likely the last war for the AS-90 SPGs. Because even the sturdy chassis of the British gun has a limited service life.
Even iron gets tired and grows old over the years.
However, this war seems to be the first where artillery isn't the primary means of destruction. In any case, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Syrskyi, claims that the statistics are on the side of strike UAVs, which inflict up to 60% of the total losses on the enemy. Does this mean the death of artillery? Not at all, because 40% of losses from artillery is still a significant share. That's why, having given away all its AS-90 SPGs, Britain is looking for a replacement. London urgently purchased 14 Archer-wheeled systems from Sweden. This is a real sniper among artillery. The Archer is fully automated, deploys in 20 seconds, and can fire 3 shells in 15 seconds. Leaving the position before they even hit the target. But the main successor to the AS-90s will be the RCH 155-wheeled SPGs. This is the world's first howitzer that can fire on the move. The RCH 155 uses the same gun as the PZH 2000, integrated into a different module. Only 2 crew members are needed here, but all of this is mounted on the chassis of a Boxer-wheeled APCs. Another advantage of a wheeled chassis is that maintenance is multiple times cheaper and simpler than tracked ones. Additionally, the mileage before a major overhaul is significantly higher for wheeled vehicles, and they consume less fuel than tracked vehicles. But you know that only war determines what's truly better. So, just in case, the Germans developed a tracked version of the RCH-155 SPGs because tracked chassis are considered more durable, though more expensive. What will be the deciding factor? Price or survivability? We will be the first to find out what wheeled chassis are worth on heavy black soil, because Ukraine became the first customer of the RCH-155s.
We need to change something. We need to switch to more advanced and faster systems. There's no other way.
Let us know in the comments if you think the RCH-155s will be a game changer, or should Britain maybe restart production of the AS-90s, but in a more high-tech modification? Or just write your impressions of the fact that artillery has stopped being the primary means of destruction. We're very interested in your opinion, and if you didn't get enough action, you'll definitely find something in these playlists to get your adrenaline pumping. Stay safe and support Ukraine.